First days at UTA. I had transferred to UTA after it became apparent that fraternity life and engineering school did not mix. I spent that first semester at UTA sharing an apartment with a Jew, a Korean, and a country boy, Troy. The only distinctive things that return to my memory are the big party, mayonnaise and English peas. Let me explain the peas first. This big Jewish boy only kept two things in the refrigerator, mayonnaise and English peas. He would dump half the jar of mayonnaise in a large iced tea glass, then open a can of English peas and dump those in also. He would stir these together and proceed to gulp this revolting mixture down with the aid of the iced tea spoon and gravity. I warned you that this book was about memories. Well, that's one that still sticks. The big party started one afternoon when we invited the band that lived down the hallway to come over and set up. The music drew the girls made for party time, and before long we had drunk up all the beer and booze on premises. Since I was the only one of legal age, we all piled in my car and headed for the Grand Prairie Strip to buy liquor. On the return trip, we had a carload of booze, a hell of a party atmosphere, and red lights in the mirror. Suddenly, as the cop asked us to line up outside the car, I realized I was the only one of age, contributing to the delinquency of minors, and that there were at least 4 open cans of beer rolling around the floorboards of the '59 Chevy, driving while intoxicated, and that the red lights had been in the mirror for the last couple of miles, because 2 other patrol cars had joined the chase. Speeding, avoiding arrest, failure to whatever. My goose was cooked. The cops were pissed and ready to turn out the lights on us. That's when things started to happen. First, the guy in black shiny boots asked me to open my trunk lid. I promptly obliged, and there staring back at me was an assortment of butcher knives, saws, drills, and assorted other burglary tools. I started explaining that I had just moved from Austin to UTA and that these were my kitchen utensils, etc., and that I just had not gotten completely unpacked yet. He understood immediately but was thoroughly enjoying my escalating fear and frustration at the prospect of jail. About that time, the Jewish boy started making explanations for his red, bloodshot eyes. He said over and over again, "Officer, I am Jewish. This is the way a Jewish person's eyes look. My eyes always look like this. Honest, I haven't had more than 1 beer. I'm Jewish, that's the reason my eyes look like this." Somewhere along in here, the other kid in the car started to outright beg. He said, "Officer, I have just transferred into UTA on a football scholarship. This is my first semester. If I get in trouble with the law, the coach will kick me off the team. I can't afford to go to college without my scholarship. Please, officer, please don't take us to jail." By this time the officers had gathered around and were having to turn their heads to contain the laughter. It was like the Three Stooges, begging and making fools of themselves in front of the audience in blue. Finally, one of the officers asked where we would go if he let us go. We assured him it would be straight back to our studies. "Alright, you kids get the hell out of here and I better not stop you ever again." For a couple of blocks, the only words were sighs and groans of, "Oh shit," and, "That was close." I looked back at the guy in the back seat and said, "I didn't know you were on a football scholarship." He looked up grinning and said, "I'm not." We all cracked up, the tension soon forgotten. We returned to the party with tales of our adventure on the way to the liquor store. The dance. Life is like a dance, with circumstance the music. Les Stark. When I was barely a teenager, my mom decided I needed to know how to dance. She put on an old 78-speed vinyl record on the living room radio record player and showed me how to hold a girl. No real steps, just how to move and sway to the rhythm of the music. Just after that, a short-lived community center offered a youth night of dance lessons. They taught the Bach step, cha-cha, waltz, twist, and the new, cool, dance, the bop. I seemed to be blessed with rhythm and my interest in girls was enhanced by my dancing skills. In those days, there was always a sock hop following the Friday night football games. The dance floor was the basketball gym and only socks were allowed on the polished hardwood floor. Dancing is a life skill that should be mastered by all young men. It is like typing and golf, they can be useful and enjoyed for many years. Merlene and I still enjoy the dance floor on ocean cruises. While at Maui on the 20th anniversary of the IAMS company, Merlene had a classic dance partner. Chubby Checkers, the inventor of the twist, was hired to entertain at the opening night luau. She was asked to join him on the stage and they did the twist while he sang the classic song. It was only later in the night that one of the IM salesmen told me that Chubby had a habit of groping the women as they danced on the stage. 3 of the largest IM salesmen had taken Chubby aside before the evening and assured him that if he groped any of the ladies, he would find himself with broken bones and bruises the next morning. Meeting Merlene. UTA had a weekly school dance at the student union. It was a great way to meet and impress the girls back then, and I attended the UTA dances with that same purpose in mind. One girl in particular was a good dancer and cute. I asked her if she wanted to go out to dinner. She agreed, and the die was struck for my future. Our first date was at the Italian Inn in Arlington. I don't remember a lot about the date except that she made a grand entrance from the dorm. The dorm had a flight of stairs from the second, down to the main floor. I stood waiting at the base of the steps and she proceeded to stumble and half fall down the stairs to my feet. We dated for a few months, and I asked her to marry me. We were soon married in Fort Worth at a Methodist church and went on our honeymoon in my new first edition Ford Mustang to Colorado. The whole dating and wedding thing was less than 6 months. Young married. I wasn't out of college yet, so Merlene got a job with a moving company to support us while I finished. I got my degree in electrical engineering and a job with LTV in Grand Prairie as a starting engineer. My salary was $725 per month. At that time it was pretty good money. Today the job would pay about $6,000 per month. We lived in apartment houses in Grand Prairie, Irving, and Dallas during those early years. We enjoyed these days and then suddenly, life changed. A baby was on the way. I saw a TV show where the father of 8 children said to his father-in-law while explaining the kids, "We can't even wash our clothes in the same wash tub without." For us it was only 3 girls, but her loving name was Fertile Myrtle. I remember. Merlene danced on the table in our apartment while 9 months pregnant with Kristen. Mopping the policeman's boots as I cleaned up after the party they had closed down due to the noise. Camping out with the kids at the motorcycle enduros. Studying late at night for my master's degree while still working at LTV. Our first house was in Nottingham in North Grand Prairie. We had it custom built and it cost $22,000. 2 bedrooms upstairs for the girls and a master on the main floor. We later added on and the addition cost more than the original house. During the following years a hydro spa, a redwood deck, a 2-story workhouse, and a chicken coop were all added. I worked for LTV for 5 years before buying a business with my dad. Southland Farm Store was to be my career for years to come. It had been started by Bill Stager and Catherine Akin many years before and was a money maker. Memories from the Nottingham house. Girls hanging over the stairs while we partied in the front room, listening to the Beatles and 3 Dog Night. Buffy Lynn, our little black dog. She lived to be 19 years old and had a litter of 9 puppies at one time. Brandy, rolling around on the den carpet in front of the fireplace before she learned to walk. Pool parties in the hydro spa. My girls all dressed and lined up for photos before we left for church and Easter visits. Merlene yelled at Buffy as she escaped the backyard, "Find a good home." Chris and Tiffany being scolded for their messy rooms and Brandy saying, "Goo gaw me." Leaving for the farm store at 6 a.m. and returning home at 6 p.m. Camping in the Camp Hotel in Colorado. I could go on, for this was the core of my life. Raising the girls, dealing with Brandy's problems, building a business and future for my family. Colorado vacations with the kids. Like most Texans we discovered Colorado as the perfect escape for our summer vacations. The mountains and streams around Lake City, Creed, Silverton, Crested Butte were our favorite stomping grounds. It was pleasant weather, outdoors, quiet, but there was the time. While stopping for gas, gathering snacks, and rushing to the next attraction down the road, we thought it was rather quiet in the back seat. Usually, Tiffany and Chris were scuffling and chattering about sharing something. We looked back and, no Kristen, in the car. Turning the car around and heading back to the gas station, there in front stood a little girl, waiting with a tear in her eye, for 2 very guilty parents to retrieve the lost child. We were camped in the motor home at a remote location beside a creek where the fishing was unbelievable. There were no neighbors, no cars, we were camping in nirvana. The food ran out, 1 item at a time, and we existed for a couple of days eating fish, peanut butter and crackers. The girls, while playing around the camper, adopted a couple of rock babies, cup-size river rocks onto which Merlin painted faces. Back to the simple life, in a 25-foot motor home. But there was the time. Heading over Slumgullion Pass, at 12,000 feet, the motorhome would start to vapor lock. We would have to open the engine compartment between the two front seats, turn on the heater full blast, and open all the windows as the great beast would struggle and the noise and heat from the engine would blow through the cabin. The four-wheel drive Scout had been towed behind the executive motorhome so that we could further explore the Jeep roads. It had a tow bar that could be folded back and strapped to the grille when on its own. My Yamaha Trials bike was also carried on the bumper in front of the Scout. We had left the Yamaha on the bumper, tied up the tow bar, and were exploring a new road when suddenly the tow bar came loose, dropped, and we drove up and over the bar. It acted like a high jump pole. The whole car and everyone and everything hit the ceiling suddenly. There was a lot of wailing and crying from busted heads, but no serious damage. It was the 4th of July, Bob Poe and I were fishing, and the girls decided to go to Lake City to shop. They were having a parade, so Merlin and Sharon Poe bought some decorations, and transformed the old Scout into their Independence Day float. They had a great day at the parade and Bob and I caught our supper. Another year with the Poe family, and we stumbled onto a cross-country balloon race. We had rented an old Jeep, and with the kids stuffed in the back and the top down, we chased the balloons across southern Colorado for a couple of days. With a Scout full of kids, we were again exploring a rarely used track leading across the Colorado wilderness. We topped out the little mountain top and could see a trail in the valley below. With the Scout in four-wheel low, we started down the slate-strewn incline and I realized we were committed as the slate slid forward under the wheels. After reaching the bottom of the 100-yard grade, I realized that there was no place to continue and would have to go back up the slippery slate-covered mountainside. I made a run at the grade and the Scout ground to a halt and the engine died. We immediately started sliding back. The kids were screaming in my ear and I was desperately trying to restart the Scout as it inched backwards. If it slid sideways, we would start tumbling down the grade sideways. It started. I revved the engine in neutral and dropped the transmission into drive with a great thunk and we lurched forward. Upon reaching the top of the grade, we pulled over and exited the Scout with shaking knees and crying kids. Merlin and I agreed that our buttholes had puckered so badly that it is a wonder the seats were not torn. We never returned, but from that day on the mountain was named Hemocure Hill, as in hemorrhoid cure.